And Pakistan's interior minister is in Tehran as part of mediation efforts to end the conflict between the U.S. and Iran. Mohsin Naqvi has held talks with Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian and Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. His visit comes amid signs that Tehran and Washington may be moving closer to an agreement. Earlier, Qatar said that talks between Iran and Oman on shipping in the Strait are at an advanced stage. It says it's looking forward to positive news regarding the reopening of the Strait.
Our concern right now is in following the latest developments in the talks between Oman and Iran. We have heard positive statements from both capitals in the recent couple of days, and we are eagerly awaiting. Our main priority here is the reopening of the Strait, maintaining the ceasefire, and making sure that we are able to push forward towards the negotiation. Our mediation is ongoing, as you know, and the talks between both sides are ongoing.
Joining us from Washington, D.C. is Alan Eyre. He's a former senior U.S. diplomat who was a key member of the negotiating team for the 2015 Iran nuclear agreement. And, sir, you're also a distinguished diplomatic fellow with the Middle East Institute. It's good to have you on the program. So Iran and Oman, as we were just saying, are negotiating a Hormuz deal. Reportedly, they have actually already agreed on the exact route, the GPS coordinates, for ships to pass through the Strait, and they are yet to finalize this. What is this going to change, even if there is an agreement? Because the war is not between Iran and Oman, it's between Iran and the U.S.
Well, Cyril, they have agreed to what's called a TSS, a traffic separation scheme. It will be for 60 days. It's temporary, but that part is relatively easy. Ships will pass under Iranian control, Iranian management. But what's tough is, as you pointed out in your setup piece, that the Iranian leadership is saying they're not going to start that procedure until the U.S. does certain things in terms of giving money, peace throughout the region, and so forth and so on. So they're holding the Strait of Hormuz and maritime traffic to the Strait hostage because they are, in their minds, on a war footing, and they think they don't want to let the U.S. off the hook this early. They want to inflict more pain.
Does the U.S. have any voice in this Iran-Oman agreement, this traffic separation scheme?
Sure, the U.S. has a veto right, which is, for this to happen, Iran is going to have to, the U.S. is going to have to say yes to certain things. If it doesn't say yes, the plan will never be implemented. So the U.S. is not involved in the negotiations directly. This U.S. administration likes to outsource diplomacy to Pakistan, to Qatar, to Oman, with Oman representing all of the Gulf countries. But it does have the final yes or no vote on whether this plan is implemented.
Okay, so I'm following the logic here. Iran says we have sort of worked out the protocol with Oman of where ships would go, the whole traffic separation. That's all ready to go, right? That's what you told us. That's ready to go if and when the U.S. agrees to Iran's demands. First of all, am I right that that's where we are now?
Pretty much, but don't forget, the one thing that you didn't include, Cyril, was that it's a temporary arrangement. Yes. Iran is not saying we've worked out a permanent solution. They still want to negotiate that, but they have worked out a temporary solution, and this is in line with what they were doing before, where ships go through hugging the northern route in Iranian coastal waters, and perhaps they exit the strait in the southern route through Omani coastal waters with Iranian agreement. Because don't forget, the old highway route that the ships used to use through the center of the strait is still mined, so no one's going through that.
Well, I would say that Donald Trump said, I think it was 48 hours ago now, that they've demined, they've swept for mines the whole strait. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know, but he did make that statement in public. Okay, well,
yeah, it's not true.
That was only 48 hours ago from the U.S. president. Look, and if we move on to the second part of this, which is that the Iranians are saying we want certain conditions met. So they want damages, they want compensation for war damages, they want some of their frozen assets unfrozen, they want the fighting to end, of course, the naval blockade to end, and fighting to end regionally. That means Israel's fighting against Hezbollah, for instance. Those conditions are pretty much what was in the memorandum of understanding that was signed by both countries back in June. So if those are the conditions, does that mean then since Donald Trump signed pretty much that 2 months ago or a month and a half ago, could we get back to that?
Well, Cyril, the devil's in the details. And in this case, the details are the sequencing. What the Iranians want is to front load the benefits because they don't think they'll ever reach a nuclear agreement with this administration. They don't trust it. They don't think President Trump and his administration will stick to its word. Obviously, President Trump has the same concerns about the Iranians. So this latest statement by Mohsen Rezai is actually less demanding than the one his predecessor made a few days ago, which called for not just the unblocking of Iranian assets, but the lifting of all sanctions. But you're right, the general contours of the Iranian maximalist demands were in the MOU. They were just way toward the end part. What Iran is saying is, I want to be paid first before I start doing stuff. It's a sequencing problem.
So look, since you have expertise in this, if President Trump, just a hypothetical, were to come to you and say, look, I recognize I'm not doing super well in this war with Iran. In fact, for the moment, I've not obtained really anything that I set out to obtain. But at the same time, I don't want to admit defeat. I don't want to lose face, but I do want to end this one way or another. And he asked for your advice. What would you counsel?
Well, he's already hit upon the solution, which is make up talking points. He has already said the Strait of Hormuz is open. We're in full control of it. He has already said Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. So this administration has got the talking points ready and is already deploying them. So what I would say to this administration is take the less bad deal. And that is accepting Iranian short-term and mid-term sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz. You're not going to get back to 130 ships a day the way it was before the war. We might never get back to that. So what we're trying to do is get as much maritime traffic through the Strait as quickly as possible because, Cyril, the pain hasn't started yet. And if the Strait remains constricted, along with the Bab el-Mandab being closed to Arabian traffic by the Houthis, we're going to start feeling serious economic pain in about a month or so.
Okay. So you're saying essentially accept that Iran has control over the Strait, but work it so that they will reopen the Strait, cut your losses, and claim victory, which, by the way, Donald Trump has already said, because as you say, he has those talking points at the ready. He said dozens of times that the U.S. has essentially already won the war against Iran. We're going to leave it here for now. Alan Eyre, a former senior U.S. diplomat, thank you very much for joining us.